September 1st, 1967. Eichenach Prison, Bavaria. A female guard makes a routine morning check and finds Ilse Koch hanging from a noose she fashioned from bedsheets. She was 60 years old, the woman who prisoners called the Witch of Buchenwald, accused of selecting inmates with interesting tattoos to be killed so their skin could be made into lampshades, had ended her own life after 16 years behind bars. But Ilse Koch's death didn't close the book on her story. When she died, she left behind 3 children who had no choice in being born to one of Nazi Germany's most notorious figures. 2 sons who grew up in orphanages, a daughter she never met, and a legacy so poisonous that her descendants would spend decades trying to outrun it. This isn't the story of Ilse Koch's crimes at Buchenwald, which have been documented extensively and debated endlessly. This is the story of what happened to her family, the children who inherited a surname synonymous with sadism, who carried DNA linked to depravity. He faced a question no child should have to answer. Are you responsible for the monster who gave birth to you? What happened to the Koch children reveals brutal truths about inherited guilt, the impossibility of escaping certain legacies, and whether innocence can exist when you share blood with evil. Their story is one of abandonment, adoption, hidden identities, and a decades-long struggle to be seen as human beings rather than extensions of their mother's crimes. The making of a monster and her family. To understand what the family inherited, you need to understand what Ilse Koch actually was. Not the myth, but the documented reality. Ilse Margareta Kohler was born September 22, 1916, in Dresden, Germany, to working-class parents. Her father was a factory foreman. There was nothing in her childhood that predicted what she'd become. No documented abuse, no early violence, no warning signs. He was ordinary, a bookkeeper, a librarian, unremarkable in every way, until she met the wrong man. In 1934, at age 28, she encountered Karl-Otto Koch, an SS officer, 13 years her senior, who was rapidly climbing the concentration camp administration ladder. He was a true believer, an early Nazi Party member from 1937, and by the time they married in 1937, he was on his way to becoming Commandant of Buchenwald concentration camp, near Weimar. Ilse didn't just marry into the system, she embraced it. When Karl took command of Buchenwald in 1937, Ilse became more than a commandant's wife. She took an official position as an Aufseherin, an overseer, and quickly developed a reputation for cruelty that shocked even hardened SS men. Prisoners testified she rode through the camp on horseback with a whip, striking inmates at random. She allegedly had prisoners with distinctive tattoos murdered so their skin could be preserved as lampshades and other decorative items, a claim that remains historically disputed but became central to her legend. What isn't disputed is this: she wielded power at Buchenwald, and she used it to inflict suffering. But Ilse Koch wasn't just the Witch of Buchenwald, she was also a mother. On November 1st, 1936, before Buchenwald, she gave birth to her first son, Artwin. 3 years later, on August 19, 1939, her second son, Manfred, was born. These boys grew up in a villa on Buchenwald's grounds, living in comfort built on slave labor, while thousands starved and died within sight of their windows. The children played in gardens maintained by prisoners. They ate food prepared by prisoner cooks. Their toys were purchased with money stolen from murdered inmates. They lived in obscene privilege, surrounded by industrial-scale death. Artwin was 9 when the war ended. Manfred was barely 6. They were children. They chose nothing. They committed no crimes. They were simply born to the wrong parents at the wrong time in the wrong place. And that accident of birth would define their entire lives. Part 2. The house collapses. From within, the Koch family's destruction didn't come from Allied forces. It came from the Nazis themselves. And the reason was almost comically hypocritical. In 1943, SS investigators discovered that Karl-Otto Koch had been embezzling massive amounts of money from Buchenwald. He'd also been ordering unauthorized murders of prisoners, not as part of the extermination program, but to cover up his personal corruption. The SS, which had built an entire system for industrial genocide, drew the line at officers stealing from the Reich and killing for personal rather than ideological reasons. Karl was arrested. Ilse was implicated and briefly imprisoned, but released in 1944 for lack of evidence. Karl wasn't as fortunate. On April 5th, 1945, just 6 days before American forces would liberate Buchenwald, Karl-Otto Koch was executed by SS firing squad at the camp he once commanded. He was killed by his own side for crimes that didn't even include the atrocities he was actually guilty of. When the Americans arrived on April 11, 1945, they found hell. Over 56,000 prisoners had died at Buchenwald. The survivors were walking skeletons, and they had stories to tell about Ilse Koch that would make her internationally infamous. Ilse was arrested by American forces. Her sons, now 9 and 6, were taken away and placed in the care of German social services. The boys were suddenly orphans, their father executed, their mother imprisoned. Their entire world collapsed. But here's what no one expected. Ilse was pregnant. Part 3. The daughter who never knew. In November 1947, while imprisoned and awaiting trial, Ilse Koch gave birth to her third child, a daughter. The father was her defense attorney. Yes, while defending the witch of Buchenwald on charges of murder and crimes against humanity, her lawyer had begun a sexual relationship with her that resulted in a pregnancy. The baby girl was born in prison. Ilse never named her publicly. The child was immediately taken away and placed for adoption. German authorities, understanding the impossible burden of being known as Ilse Koch's daughter, sealed the adoption records and gave the girl a new identity. To this day, that daughter's identity remains unknown. She would be 77 years old now. She may not even know who her mother was. Some researchers believe she was told the truth when she turned 18, as was sometimes required by German law, but there's no public record. Think about that for a moment. Somewhere, potentially alive today, is a woman who is Ilse Koch's daughter. She may have lived her entire life not knowing. Or she may have discovered the truth and spent decades carrying that secret, knowing that revealing her identity would destroy any chance at a normal life. This daughter represents the ultimate moral question. Is it mercy to tell a child their mother was a monster? Or is it cruelty? Is it better to know the truth and carry that weight, or live in ignorance and never understand why you were given away? We may never know the answer, because we may never know who she is. Part 4. The sons who couldn't escape. While their sister disappeared into anonymity, Artwin and Manfred Koch faced a very different fate. Their names were public, their parentage was known, and in post-war Germany, being the son of the witch of Buchenwald made you a target. The boys were placed in a series of orphanages and foster homes throughout the late 1940s and 1950s. According to fragmentary records and accounts from social workers, they faced constant bullying, discrimination, and abuse, not for anything they'd done, but for who their parents were. Artwin, the older son, bore the brunt of it. He was old enough to have vague memories of Buchenwald, old enough to remember the villa, old enough to be asked by other children and adults, "What did you see? What did you know?" What could he say? That he was a child? That he'd been told the prisoners were criminals? That his mother seemed normal to him because she was the only mother who knew? By the mid-1950s, both boys had changed their surnames, though records disagree on exactly what names they took. Some sources suggest they took their adoptive family names. Others indicate they chose entirely new identities to sever any connection to their past. What is known with certainty is that both sons vanished from public record by the early 1960s. No confirmed photographs of them as adults exist. No interviews. No public statements. They made the choice so many children of Nazis made. Complete disappearance. Part 5. The trials and the suicide. While her children were trying to build lives far from her shadow, Ilse Koch faced justice, or something approximating it. She was first tried by an American military tribunal in 1947 and sentenced to life imprisonment. But in 1949, the US High Commissioner reduced her sentence to 4 years due to insufficient evidence for some charges, particularly the infamous lampshade allegations, which couldn't be definitively proven. This caused international outrage. Survivor groups and Jewish organizations demanded she face German courts. In 1951, she was rearrested by West German authorities and tried again, this time in a German court. She was convicted of incitement to murder and sentenced to life in prison. For 16 years, she sat in Eichenach prison. She never expressed remorse. She maintained she was a victim of propaganda. She claimed the prisoners lied about her. She said she was just a wife doing what her husband told her to do. Her sons never visited her. If they exchanged letters, none have ever been made public. By all accounts, they wanted nothing to do with her. On September 1st, 1967, she hanged herself in her cell. She left no note, no final words, no explanation. Her body was cremated. There is no grave, no marker, nothing for neo-Nazis to turn into a shrine. And her children, wherever they were, learned about their mother's death the same way everyone else did, from news reports. Part 6. The Descendants Who Live in Silence. This is where the story enters the realm of painful speculation and unanswered questions, because the Koch children have maintained their silence so successfully that almost nothing is known about their adult lives. Here's what we can piece together from fragmentary sources. Artwin Koch, the oldest son, would be 88 years old in 2024, if still alive. Some genealogical researchers believe he married and had children, making Ilse Koch a grandmother. But his identity remains unconfirmed. If he is alive, he has never spoken publicly about his mother. Manfred Koch, the younger son, would be 85 in 2024. Even less is known about him than about Artwin. Some reports suggest he emigrated from Germany entirely, possibly to South America or North America, to escape his past. But these reports are unverified. The daughter born in 1947 would be 77. Her very existence is barely acknowledged in official histories. She is the ghost in this story, a life shaped by Ilse Koch, without ever knowing her. And then there are the potential grandchildren and great-grandchildren. If Artwin or Manfred had families, there could be people alive today who carry Ilse Koch's genes, who might not even know their connection to her. This is the brutal reality of inherited infamy. It doesn't end. It doesn't fade. It passes from generation to generation, a genetic curse that can't be lifted. Part 7. The Moral Weight of a Name. The Koch children's choice to disappear raises profound questions about inherited guilt and family responsibility. Were they right to hide? Or did they have an obligation to speak, to publicly acknowledge their mother's crimes, to use their unique position to educate others? Compare their path to other Nazi descendants. Some, like Rolf Mengele, eventually spoke out against their fathers. Others, like Gudrun Himmler, spent their lives defending the indefensible. The Koch children chose a third path: silence and anonymity. You could argue they owed the world nothing. They were children. They committed no crimes. Why should they spend their lives apologizing for a monster they didn't create and couldn't control? But you could also argue they had a responsibility. They are among the very few people who could have provided first-hand testimony about what it was like to be raised by Ilse Koch. They could have helped historians understand how such evil can exist alongside maternal behavior. They could have been living reminders that the children of monsters are still human. They chose silence. And that choice is neither right nor wrong. It simply is. Part 8. The Lampshade That Defined a Legend. Before we move forward, we need to address the elephant in the room. The lampshades made of human skin that made Ilse Koch internationally infamous. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The evidence for the lampshades is disputed. American investigators found lampshades and other items made of what appeared to be tattooed human skin at Buchenwald. They were displayed at her 1947 trial, but subsequent forensic analysis has been inconclusive. Some experts believe the skin was human. Others believe it was animal skin, possibly goat, which was commonly used for lampshades in that era. What we know for certain is that prisoners at Buchenwald testified that Ilse Koch selected inmates with interesting tattoos. What we don't know for certain is what happened to those inmates after they were selected. The lampshade story became symbolic. Whether or not it was literally true, it represented the depravity of the Nazi system and Ilse Koch's role in it. But for her children, this ambiguity must have been torture. How do you defend your mother against accusations that might not be true? And if they're not true, does it even matter when so many other atrocities definitely were? What happened next would shock everyone who thought they knew this story. The story of Ilse Koch's family is not a story of redemption. It's not a story of justice. It's not even a story with a clear ending, because the people at its center have deliberately made themselves invisible. It's a story about the impossible position of being born to a monster, about carrying DNA that connects you to evil you didn't commit, about spending your entire life defined by someone else's crimes. Artwin and Manfred Koch, if they're still alive, are old men now. The daughter is a grandmother. They have lived entire lives in the shadow of Buchenwald, haunted by a mother they barely knew or never knew at all. They made a choice: disappear. Don't engage, don't explain, don't defend. Just vanish. Was it the right choice? There is no right choice when you're the child of someone like Ilse Koch. The Koch family story forces us to confront uncomfortable truths. That evil has children. That those children are innocent of their parents' crimes. but can never escape them.
Was it
and
the
that
right
some
choice?
legacies are so toxic
There is
they
no right
poison
choice
generations.
when you're the child of
Somewhere,
someone like
Ilse
Koch.
Koch's descendants are living
The Koch
quiet
family
lives
story
under
forces
different
us to
names.
confront
They go to
uncomfortable
work.
truths.
They have friends who don't
that
know
evil
their
has
secret.
children.
They might have
But
children
those children
who don't know
are
their
innocent
grandmother
of their
was the
parents'
witch of
crimes,
Buchenwald,
but
can
can
never
perhaps
escape
that's
them.
for the best.
And that some
Perhaps
legacies
the kind
are
of
so
thing we
toxic
can do
they
is let them
poison
live in
generations,
peace.
to not hunt them down.
Somewhere,
to not
Ilse
demand
Koch's
they account for
descendants are living
crimes they
quiet
didn't
lives
commit.
under
Or
different
perhaps
names.
there's value
They go
in
to
knowing
work.
their stories.
They have friends
in
who don't know
understanding
their
how the
secrets.
children of
They
monsters
might have children
become
who don't know their
human
grandmother
beings
is
who
the witch
simply
of
want to be
Buchenwald.
left alone.
The Koch
And
children
perhaps
chose
that's
silence.
for the best. The world
Perhaps
chose
the
to
kindest
let them
thing we
have
can
it.
do is
In
let
the
them
end,
live in peace.
legacy is not
to
what
not
you
hunt them
inherit.
down. It's what
to
you
not
choose
demand
to
they
do with
account
what you
for
inherit.
crimes they didn't
And
commit.
sometimes the bravest
Or
choice
perhaps
is to
there's
walk
value
away.
in knowing
Change
their
your
stories,
name and try
in
to build
understanding
something
how
good
the children
from
of
the ruins
monsters
something
become
evil.
human beings.
The witch of
who simply
Buchenwald
want to
died
be
in
left
1967.
The
But
Koch
her children
children
chose
are still
silence.
living with what she left
The
behind.
world chose to
That's
let
the
them
real
have it.
horror of inherited evil.
In the end,
it doesn't end.
legacy
when
is not
monster
what you
dies.
inherit.
It echoes
It's
through
what you choose
generations.
to do with
a
what you
curse
inherit.
that can never
And
quite be
sometimes,
lifted. If this
the bravest
exploration
choice
of the
is
hidden
to
human
walk away.
costs behind history's
Change your
darkest
name
chapters
and try to
resonated
build
with you,
something good
subscribe
from
for
the
more
ruins of
untold
something
stories
evil.
of World War II
The Witch of
families and the
Buchenwald
impossible
died in
legacies they carry.
1967.
These stories
But her
matter
children
because
are
they
still
remind
living
us
with what
that
she left
history isn't
behind.
just about the
That's
famous
the real
and the
horror
infamous.
of inherited
It's about
evil.
the innocent people
It doesn't
caught
end
in their
when a
wake,
monster dies.
trying to survive.
It
trying
echoes
to
through
be human,
generations,
trying to
a
escape the
curse
shadows
that can
that
never
will
quite
quite
be lifted
for the rest of their lives.
If this
Hit that
exploration
subscribe
of the
button
hidden
and join
human
us as we
costs
uncover
behind
the stories
history's
that
darkest
textbooks
chapters
don't tell.
resonated
The
with
human
you.
consequences
Subscribe
of
for
evil
more
that persist
untold stories
long
of
after
World
the
War II
perpetrators are
families
gone.
and the impossible legacies they carry.
These stories matter because they remind us that history isn't just about the famous and the infamous. It's about the innocent people caught in their wake, trying to survive, trying to be human, trying to escape the shadows that will follow them for the rest of their lives. Hit that subscribe button and join us as we uncover the stories that textbooks don't tell, the human consequences of evil that persist long after the perpetrators are gone.